What's up guys, it's Nick with Two Brothers Comics, and today I'm going to talk about the most expensive comic book that has ever been sold. And I'm not talking about Ultimate Fallout 4 or Hell Arisen 3, so stay tuned. So the other day I was looking around and I decided to look up what was the most expensive comic book in history. Now I kind of had an idea of what it was and I was fairly certain, but I wanted to know very specifically what the comic book was, who it belonged to, where it was sold, for how much, through what avenue, obviously what grade, things like that. As you can probably guess, it was Action Comics #1. So what's special about Action Comics #1 for anybody out there that may not know, it is the first appearance of Superman. Now this was a 10-cent comic that was sold in 1938 through what we now know as DC Comics. Now Superman was created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, and what's mind-blowing to me is the fact that this comic book sold for 10 cents during the time. That is equivalent to $2 in current value. A $2 comic book that has now turned into literally millions. Now this specific copy of Action Comics #1 was a CGC 9.0 grade, and it was sold through eBay. Can you imagine? Action Comics #1 being sold through eBay. Not some highly regarded auction house like Heritage Auctions and some of these other ones, but eBay. Now it started off at 99 cents. Can you imagine listing Action Comics #1 in a almost near mint perfect condition, 9.0, for 99 cents on eBay? First off, I couldn't imagine having the book, but second off, to sell it through eBay and to start it off at 99 cents, it's almost comical. But within 2 hours, it had reached over $1.6 million. 2 hours, this man made $1.6 million guaranteed, but it didn't stop there. So Darren Adams, who actually owned Pristine Comics at the time, he may still own the book, put it up on eBay, starts at 99 cents, within 2 hours, $1.6 million. Still mind-boggling. Up until this point, the previous record was $2.16 million for an Action Comics #1. It was previously owned by Nicolas Cage. That was sold through an auction house, and at that point was the record. And that book was also a 9.0. So from 2011, the sale was $2.16 million. This book went up in 2014 and almost doubled that. Now, before I tell you the final price, this book had over 200,000 copies sold originally, over 200,000 units sold, and they're only thought to be less than 100 still in existence. And CGC has specifically only ever graded, at this time in 2014, 7 unrestored copies that hit over a 6.0, only 7. So if you're talking about a comic book to invest in, this would be the one I would invest in, because it sold for a staggering $3.21 million. In 2011, a little over $2 million. 2014, over $3 million. Now that was not the same exact comic, but that was the same exact issue in the same exact grade 3 years later. So if you have a couple $1 million laying around and you see one of these pop up, buy it, because in a couple of years it may skyrocket in value and get you another $1 million or $2 million. I just thought that was the most incredible thing, that just a few years later, garnered over $1 million in revenue. A few years later, Action Comics 80885 ended up selling for a little over $2 million again. So it's mind-boggling that something of 10 cents during that time, about $2 in today's value, is now over $3 million. And this isn't the only comic book like this. Obviously, Action Comics #1 is a massive grail, but you have comics like Detective Comics 27, AF15, Superman #1, Hulk #1, Showcase #8, some really incredible comic books. But the most expensive comic book in the world is Action Comics #1. Now I want to read you what he put in the description of the listing, and I thought that was pretty fun to come across and read. This is the comic book that started it all. The comic features not only the first appearance of Superman, Clark Kent, and Lois Lane, but this comic began the entire superhero genre that has followed during the 76 years since. It is referred to as the Holy Grail of comics, and this is the finest graded copy to exist with perfect white pages. This is the Mona Lisa of comics and stands alone as the most valuable comic book ever printed. I thought that was some pretty interesting comic book history. It is fairly recent history, however, it is still history. The most expensive comic book in the world. I can't imagine having it. My question for you guys, let me know in the comments, would you pay, if you had the money, $3.2 and some change million for a comic book? Or what would you do with the money instead? I don't think I would pay $3.2 million for a comic book, but if I had that kind of money laying around, I don't know what I would do. Guys, if you enjoyed the video, subscribe, hit the like button, and drop a comment and let me know what the next week's topic should be for 2 minutes in comic book history. As always, guys, collect your way.